All right. So yes, thanks for those that are joining us live right now. I know this was on short notice, and also we weren't able to get the main equipment working just quite right. We'll have to work on that for the future. We can hopefully do more of these more often. But the idea was to give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of the product that we're announcing tomorrow, which in this case, it may not look that big on the screen, but for those that are familiar with it, this is a very large airplane. In fact, this is one of the largest E-flite airplanes we've ever had, and it's a model that we've sold in the past. It is the Carbon Z T-28 Trojan 2 meter, and the benefit of that is, let's see, we've brought it back now for what is its third iteration. The first initial version was released 2015, and it was around for a couple of years, and then it slowed down in sales, so we brought it back a couple of years later by adding safe. That was really the only change that we made to it. And when we did that, it sold better. But even back then, in 2018 to 2020 time frame, a lot of people felt like it was too much money for a foam airplane. They felt like it was too expensive, and so the market kind of softened on it. One of the main issues that a lot of people had back then were with the retractable landing gear. And so a lot of people, especially that were flying from grass or other surfaces that weren't very smooth, like a nice smooth runway, they struggled with the retract units not being very reliable. And so a good portion of them failed. They had to replace them pretty often. And so that was probably the Achilles heel of the original version of this. And so that was one of the main things that we wanted to address. In fact, that was really the main point that we wanted to address before we addressed anything else with this, was to make sure that we ended up with now all new retract units that are more durable, so they can handle the grass surfaces in particular, and they're also more reliable. And so they work more often, even after a harder landing. They're still not indestructible by any stretch, but they're a lot more durable than they used to be. And so that's a nice big change. The other big change are the lights. You guys can see we added lights. So we've got the navigation lights on the wingtips. We've got on top of the fuselage, on the bottom of the fuselage, we've got the landing lights in the root of the wings on both sides. And that adds a lot to the airplane. It just looks a lot cooler, even in the daylight. It's very nice at night, kind of in the evening hours, also in the early morning hours. So you can basically fly it earlier in the day till later in the day now with the lights. And that just adds to the scale, look and feel, adds a lot of value to the product. People expect lights in almost everything. And so these days, especially in larger aircraft, we tend to add them right from the get-go. We weren't able to add them to our 1.2 meter warbirds that we released recently, but in this case, it was very easy to add them. Did add a little bit of expense to it, but we think it was well worth it. And so that was a big change. And then, of course, you can see it's now fully painted yellow. So the original T-28, Carbon Z T-28, was that more traditional white with the red and also a little bit of black trim. The downside of that was there was a lot of white foam that was exposed. And what we found over the last 3 to 5 years in particular is more and more people, especially with these bigger, more expensive airplanes, they really want all painted. They don't want to see white foam. They don't want to know that it's a foam airplane. Of course, it is a foam airplane. So with the stiffer foam that we use now, and then also it has a smoother finish, and then also the paint, when you're looking at this, most people would have no idea this is a foam airplane. So that gives it a much more premium look and feel. It just feels like it's a higher level product, and so that's what we say it has that more premium, fully painted finish. And I think that's a big difference. So again, main differences: the new paint job, the lights, the updated retractable landing gear, and then internally we did change to a now Smart Light ESC. So it had a 70 amp ESC before, now we switched to a 70 amp Smart Light. We kept the motor the same, so we did not change the power system because it worked so well. We didn't really see a need to change it. It has better than scale performance. It is 6S compatible, which most people use 6S batteries for this class of model. The only other thing we changed then was the receiver in the Bind and Fly Basic version. So now, instead of having a 636 that we had back in the day, we now have a 637 TA receiver, which is an even nicer receiver. It has full range telemetry, and I really like that because it does have the full suite of smart telemetry. You've got the battery voltage, you've got the current draw, the power system, RPM of the motor, temperature of the ESC, all the things that people are getting used to with smart telemetry. This has all of those things now. And so that's really nice. The Bind-and-Fly basic version, of course, has that receiver, has that smart telemetry right from the get-go if you're using a compatible Spectrum transmitter, which I am here with my NX8. And so a lot of people have come to appreciate the battery voltage telemetry, because now instead of flying to a timer, you can just fly into your transmitter alerts. And when your transmitter alerts, now you have time to land before your low voltage cutoff kicks in on the ESC. So it's really nice to have the smart electronics, now the smart telemetry. That's a nice step up. And so those are the biggest things that have changed. Everything else about the model is the same. So it's pretty much the same servos, other than now Spectrum brand instead of E-flite brand. Again, the motor's the same. The wheels and things didn't change. All the hardware is pretty much the same. All the scale details are the same, including these scale strut covers that are on the landing gear. So the nice thing about those is they look very scale. They're not suspension struts, and that's something that people might complain about. They really want, those pneumatic or semi-pneumatic or spring-loaded struts that look cool and also help with the functions. The downside is those are more expensive. So one of the goals here was to keep the price as low as we could. And one of the concerns in the past with the original version, which sold for $569 as a Bind-and-Fly, then $549, people said that was too expensive. Well, of course, things have changed, and in the time since then, everything's gotten more expensive. Shipping went up a lot. So now this airplane is $100 more. The Bind-and-Fly Basic is $649, $649.99. The plug-and-play is $619, so $30 less. So it is more expensive, but you have that more premium fully painted finish. You've got the lights, which adds a nice value to it. You have the more reliable retract units. You have the new smart electronics. And then again, of course, costs have gone up, labor costs, material costs. The one benefit is that the container shipping costs have gone down. So instead of selling it for $700, so originally about 6 months ago and a year ago, because of the higher shipping costs, we thought we were going to have to sell this thing for $699, which was very scary to us. That's a very high price. And so the nice thing is those costs have come down in the last few months. So instead of releasing it at $699, we're able to release it at $649. And it is still, again, more expensive than it was before. But I think when you compare it to everything else that's out there, it's well worth it. It's a very, very big airplane. I'll show you guys here in a second. I'll get behind it and show you the size of it. But it's a massive airplane. If you had a wood airplane or a composite airplane the same size as this, which is this 2-meter wingspan, so it's almost 80-inch wingspan, a wood version would be about twice the price, $1,500 maybe, give or take, to put everything you need in it. A composite one would be probably double that. So, a wood or a composite airplane would be 2 to 4 times more than this foam airplane is. And now with the fully painted finish, it looks like, it's an even more expensive airplane than it is. But the nice thing is, because it is foam, it is more durable, easier to handle, easier to put together for a lot of people. Does come out of the box mostly factory assembled. You do have to do a little more assembly with this than you have to with our smaller airplanes. For example, you have to install a motor and things like that, because we're trying to keep it in the smallest box possible. But that said, it still takes about an hour. You don't have to use any glue, and it is still easy to put together for the average person. It is very durable and tough, so if you do break it, crash it, it is easy to fix it with some glue, or of course you can buy replacement parts for it. We'll talk more about the replacement parts here in a minute, but let me look at my notes here, make sure I didn't miss any of the major points on what we've changed. So yeah, the original version did not have safe in the Bind-and-Fly Basic version. When we brought it back the second time, we added Safe Select. So this version now, the Bind-and-Fly, does have AS3X and Safe Select, of course. The other thing it has is optional use motor reversing. So the motor reversing is not scale. You don't need it on this model. But what's nice is if you are landing and you're rolling out a little long on the runway, let's say you're going to go off the end of your runway, you can enable and then engage that motor reversing, and it would slow the airplane down and keep it from rolling off the runway. You can also taxi backwards, which is just a fun thing. But the nice thing about it is that you do have the option to use that if you want to. You don't have to use that by any stretch. But it is a nice little feature that the new version here has that the previous versions didn't have. That's in the Bind-and-Fly Basic version. If you have a plug-and-play version, you'd have to use a smart receiver, which is what we already have in this Bind-and-Fly Basic version, to get that feature. And then real quick, it is a 6-channel airplane. So a plug-and-play airplane is a 6-channel airplane. The Bind-and-Fly Basic airplane is a 6-channel airplane because it has all the basic functions plus the flaps, and it also has the retractable landing gear, of course. But if you want to use Safe Select on a separate channel, you need to use a 7-channel transmitter. And then if you want the motor reversing, that's another channel. So that's an 8-channel transmitter that you would need with the Bind and Fly basic version to take care of all of the features this model has. And that's why I'm using the NX8 here. And that's my shameless plug to recommend that, you know, as dealers, you guys are hopefully helping people buy their first or their next radio. And back in the day, a 6-channel radio was enough. But these days, more and more of our airplanes are going to have enough features and options. Now, granted, you don't need to use them all, but if you want to use them all, like for example, safe on a separate channel, the motor reversing on a separate channel, you need to have an 8-channel transmitter. Down the road, you may even need a 9 or a 10-channel transmitter, but these days I tell everyone, you buy a 6-channel radio, you will outgrow it. You buy an NX6, which has that 7th channel, you may outgrow it, you probably will. If you buy an NX8 or a DX8E at least, you probably won't outgrow it. And if you buy a NX10, you're definitely not going to outgrow that. Most people won't outgrow that. And of course, an IX14 and IX20. But that's my shameless plug to tell guys. You should buy at least an 8-channel radio, even if you're just flying mostly E-flite bind and fly airplanes these days. A lot more of our products are going to have those 7th and 8th and even potentially 9 and 10-channel options that they need more channels to take care of that. So something to keep in mind, something to help recommend to your sales staff and to help explain to the consumer as well. And the wing is 2-piece. It's very, very large, but it does come off with some bolts. And the benefit of the 2-piece wing is it makes it a lot easier to transport. And I'll share the video in our chat here at the end, and you can see that 2-piece wing. But I also want to just show you guys how big this thing is. And you know, it's probably hard to see there on the video in particular, but it's a massive airplane. So again, the wing is 2 meters, almost an 80-inch wingspan. The fuselage is very large, but what we found is as long as you take the wing off, which again, it comes off with bolts. So you've got 4 bolts here to take the wing on and off. As long as you take that off, you can split it in the middle. It's a 2-piece wing. And you can actually transport this in a lot of even sedans if you put the seats down and you put the fuselage in the trunk and the wing panels in the trunk. Of course, an SUV or a van is better, but it is something that most people can transport, most people can store because it has the 2-piece wing. So one of the things we did not add, which we have in a lot of our airplanes these days, is hands-free servo connections on the wing. Now, I know that some guys are going to say, well, hey, you know, this airplane needs it more than most because this airplane is so big you do have to take it apart. The downside is that hands-free servo connection would have added more to the cost. So tooling has gotten more expensive, the labor to install things like that has gotten more expensive. So if we had added the hands-free connection to the wing, it would have added almost $20 or $30 to the price of the airplane, which some guys will tell you, I would have gladly paid that for hands-free. But admittedly, we were very worried already about the price going over $700 or now even breaking $650. And so we decided to leave the hands-free connections out. So there's 3 extensions, you know, 3 Y harnesses, one for the lights, one for the retracts. Oh, sorry, one for the retracts, one for the flaps, one for the aileron servos. The lights are tied into one of those. I forget which one. But those 3 connections are pretty easy to connect. You know, it's just a regular servo connector. And it's a big airplane with very, very long leads. Not very long leads, but longer leads. It's easy to plug them in. So that's something to, maybe it might come up with some of the consumers, but that's if they ask why didn't we do it, you can explain that's why we didn't do it. Also, again, that's why we don't have the suspension struts, because those would have added expense as well. We do have a way to help people out with softer tires. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But let me just run through some of the other features. One of the other things is that when we paint an airplane like this, even if a person doesn't like the paint job, they may want to repaint it. So what we did is, to help with that, we put the decals that were normally on the original version in a separate bag now. So there's a few decals applied. You'll see we have the roundel with the star there, the star and bar, basically the navy decal. These are pretty much the basic decals most people would want on there. Those are already factory applied, but all these other small ones like the numbers here, these little lightning bolts, these other little detail marks, we did not apply these decals from the factory. In case a person wants to repaint it, it's easier to do without these installed, or they can apply these if they like it, or they can apply their own decals to customize and personalize it. So we're doing that a little bit more, especially in our scale aircraft, because a lot of people like to personalize and customize scale aircraft in particular if they can. So that's something else we did a little differently for this particular one. But again, the minimal decals that most people would want are on there. So it's not completely naked out of the box, but at the same time, we didn't put a bunch of decals on, so that way people have the option to do what they would prefer to do on their own. Let me double check some other things in the notes here. So for the initial intro, we are offering a little bit of a special offer on a battery. So this airplane is set up for 6S batteries, and it can fly anywhere from a 6S 3200 up to a 7000. So this is my favorite battery personally, is the 7000. I love the extra flight time, the little extra power that the 7000 battery gives me. 30C is more than enough. This airplane pulls less than 70 amps, so it's not even pulling 10C on this battery. So that's fine. You can also fly it as low as a 3200 6S. And some guys will already have these from other airplanes. You can use a 4000, and then of course, what most people have in this class of model is a 5000, which is what I have installed in here right now. So a 6S 5000 is probably the sweet spot for most people, and that's what the intro offer is. So for every one of these models that you guys buy over the next few weeks, you can add a 6S 5000 30C G1 smart battery for half of your net price. And then we are offering the same deal to consumers as well. And then if you honor that offer that we have, giving them half off of the map of the battery, selling them the battery for $65 instead of $130, which might help sell more airplanes, might help sell more batteries. So I would recommend taking advantage of that intro offer if you can. And so the C rating of the battery, yeah, again, 30C is more than enough on all of these because it only pulls about 70 amps, which on 7000 is 10C. On a 3200, that's barely 20C. And on a 5000, it's only like 15C. So, 30C is more than enough for this. Flight times are anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes, depending on how you fly and what battery you're using. The bigger the battery, of course, the longer the flight time, but also the harder I fly. So with 7000s, I get 7 to 10 minutes, but I know guys have gone out there and shot touch and goes for 20 minutes on a 7000. With a 3200, you get the shortest flight time. That'll probably be 5 to 10 minutes for the average person, maybe 5 to 7 minutes for most people, I would think. And so that's a wide range of batteries that fits and works, which is very, very nice. And again, there is that intro offer available for people that need a battery or want to buy an extra battery from the get-go. By the way, we included a G1 battery instead of a G2 in that offer because, of course, there are a lot of guys that still don't have a smart charger yet. It's an opportunity to sell them one, but if they don't have a smart charger, of course, with the G1, they can still use the balance connector with their standard charger in. What I've found is once you get a guy to try like one smart battery, especially experienced guys, a lot of them are very anti-smart. They're anti-G2 with no balance connector. Once they try a smart battery and they see how well they perform, and then also they see the self-discharge to storage, and then if they get a smart charger, they see how easy it is to plug it in and go. A lot more people tend to adopt smart batteries after they try them. Of course, new customers, they tend to like the smart batteries because they don't want to learn about batteries, which is great. We want to keep them safe and we want to make it easy to use. This airplane is not intended for, of course, a first-time RC pilot, so you might be selling this more to experienced guys, and that's where it helps to have that initial battery offer to get them into a smart battery at a lower price, and that's why, again, it is a G1. And no, you're not, well, you're limited to one battery at the discounted price per airplane. So if you buy 6 airplanes, you can buy 6 batteries. You can't buy more. That does have to be keyed manually by your account manager. So they will be monitoring how many planes you buy, and then they will give you an equal number of batteries at the discounted price. Yeah, I know a lot of guys like to buy 2 batteries, but just so you guys know, I mean, we're literally losing money selling you the battery at that price, so we can't afford to give away too many batteries. That's kind of our intro to help offer the battery to get some guys to buy the plane that might not have otherwise, or to buy a smart battery that might not have otherwise. So, losing a little bit of money in hopes of making them a long-term customer of smart lipos down the road. So nice offer there. So again, real quick on the skill level. Again, not for a beginner. It is obviously not a trainer by any stretch. It is a very easy to fly airplane. And of course, bigger flies better, generally speaking. I've flown a lot of T-28s. They all fly great all the time. They're all T-28s are very, very good first low-wing airplanes, first warbird airplanes. And so our 1.1 meter T-28 is my favorite second airplane. The 1.2 meter is a great, first low-wing full-house warbird. You probably should at least have a couple airplanes under your belt before you go and fly this. We say this is for intermediate, that the Bind and Fly Basic is a skill level 2 airplane. As long as you've flown at least one low-wing, say warbird-esque airplane, the 1.1 meter, the 1.2 meter, you can fly this successfully. It's not hard to take off, not hard to fly around, and it's not even that hard to land. So again, having some experience is important. The plug-and-play version we say is skill level 3. And the reason for that is because it doesn't have the receiver installed, so you have to know how to install a receiver. Also, you will not have AS3X and you won't have safe unless you program that, which of course you need to know how to do that if you wanted to add it. So that's why the Bind and Fly is a skill level 2, because it has AS3X and safe, the receiver's already installed. And then of course the plug and play is again skill level 3. So you have to have a little more experience for that. And the vast majority of people are going to buy the Bind and Fly, even experienced pilots. And it's very nice because it comes out of the box already tuned, already ready to go. And of course, some people may not know this, but with our new airplanes that have the forward programming ability, so you can go into the menu now and you can literally program different flight modes. So you can have now, even with a Bind and Fly, you can have a 3-position switch. One position is safe, another position is AS3X, and another position is everything off. So you can now program that through the forward programming on the transmitter, which is a very nice touch. You can also adjust the gyro gains if somebody wanted to do that. A more experienced user can do that. Our new airplanes allow you to do these things. So it's a very, very nice thing that we have the option to do now that we didn't have before with forward programming. So that's kind of nice. Let's see, what else do we got here? Let's talk a little bit about the parts. And so most of the parts that, especially anything yellow, is different than the original. Of course, the wing from this one will fit on the original one, but the paint won't match. A lot of the guts, the hardware, it's all the same. The struts are the same, the pilot is the same, the motor's the same, the push rods are the same. Again, the electronics are now Spectrum branded, except the motor is still E-flite branded. It's exactly the same. And then, of course, the new version has the lights installed. You cannot really retrofit the lights to the old version. Some guys are going to ask about that. You can just let them know. I mean, if they really wanted to, they could, but you'd have to cut slots and run wires. And, we modified the tooling of this version to accept the lights from the factory. So that's not really practical. The other thing a lot of people are going to ask about are the retract units. They're going to want to know, can I put the new retract units in my old airplane? The answer is yes. The caveat is that the new retracts, they have a narrower frame. So the bolt plate, the mounting plate that bolts into the airplane, the holes are all in the same spot. So it bolts right in. The problem is the frame of the retract is narrower than the slot that it goes into. So on the old airplanes, if you put a new retract in the old airplane, you'll bolt it in and there's going to be space on either side of the retract unit. And so that allows the unit to wobble back and forth. You would need to put in 16th inch shims on either side of the retract unit to keep that from moving. Otherwise, it'll break the mount. So if someone wants to install the new retracts in an old airplane, they'll need to shim it. That's important. The new airplanes are modified so the mounts butt right against the new retract units. And we couldn't redo the retract unit. It's a retract we use in another airplane. It's proven to be very, very reliable, a very good value, very, very good retract all around. And so that's a nice thing that again, you can put the new units in the old plane, but they have to do a little bit of modeling, use some plywood or plastic shim or something. They just have to shim it. If they don't, they'll break their mounts, and we don't want that to happen. But generally speaking, if the guy wants the new retracts, he wants the lights, he wants smart, he wants the new paint, he might as well buy a new airplane anyway. Question here in the chat I see, can you turn the lights off? You cannot. They're not on a switch. You have to either unplug them from the receiver or from the wire leads. That's one way to turn them off. Some guys may add a light controller, but we didn't put that in there because that would have added cost as well. We try our best to keep the cost down. It's not cheap, but it's cheaper than it would have been if it had a light controller, if it had the hands-free connections, if it had the shock-absorbing struts. So we did all those things to help keep the price down. Real quick note, we do have optional softer tires. So it comes with the same wheels and tires the original had, which work pretty well on most surfaces. Guys that fly on a hard, smooth surface like a runway, they may prefer softer tires because those have a little bit more cushion to them. The downside of softer tires is they wear out faster, and they also kind of stick. So let's say you're coming in a crosswind landing on a smooth surface, smooth runway. With the harder tires like this has, it just hits the ground and skids. And it doesn't tend to go up on a wingtip, it doesn't flip the airplane, it doesn't flat spot the tires, it doesn't grab and skip. That's one benefit of the harder tires. The softer tires would grab if you land sideways, and again, kind of tip up the airplane. You can damage the tires, you can flat spot them. Those are a separate option, but we did offer them because some people prefer to have that softer cushioning tire on landing. Some guys may prefer that even if they fly from grass. So they are available separately. You'll see them in the option parts list. I think they're like $20. You use the existing rims, I believe. You just swap the tires out. So similar to what we did, if you guys remember the Focke-Wulf 1.5 meter, we had harder tires on it out of the box, and then we had the optional softer tires sold separately. So yeah, I think that covers pretty much everything that you guys might want to know, but let's see. If you got any other questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat before I move on to the next one. And I'm excited that we have this back because honestly, this is one of the best flying electric bind and fly plug and play airplanes there is in the entire world. It flies incredible. Real quick note, we did not change the motor because we felt like it had plenty of performance. It's good speed, good vertical, not pulling a lot of current. If we had put a more powerful motor in, what would have happened is we probably would have had to upgrade to a higher amp capacity ESC, so we probably had to put 100 amp ESC, which would have added to the price. Motor would have gotten bigger. It has plenty of power. It doesn't need more power, doesn't need more speed. Of course, some people always want more. They're more than welcome to change the motor and ESC on their own. But that said, we decided to keep it the way it was because we felt like it's better than scale power already. It's good speed, good vertical, doesn't pull a lot more current. We don't have to change the ESC. We don't have to change to higher C-rated batteries, all those other things that would come with a more powerful battery. So that's kind of a nice feature. The paint, it looks amazing, fully painted. You don't see foam again. It's a denser foam, so it looks better. It is carbon Z construction. Now, this is an unknown thing that not everybody knows, but carbon Z does not mean giant scale. Carbon Z is a type of construction. We've used carbon Z construction in a lot of our smaller airplanes, and in fact, some of our smaller airplanes now we use it, we just don't call it carbon Z. We won't call any more airplanes carbon Z, by the way. Carbon Z is an old term that's kind of outdated because a lot of airplanes are basically carbon Z construction now. Carbon Z means it's a foam structure, hollow, with carbon fiber reinforcement, and also there's some wood reinforcement as well. So a lot of our foamies now, E-flite airplanes, are carbon Z construction. We just don't call them carbon Z anymore. We still call this carbon Z. We call the Cessna and the Cub carbon Z because they were originally. We didn't take that away. They are still that. But again, carbon Z doesn't mean big. It just happens that right now the only carbon Z airplanes that we sell are larger. But again, carbon Z doesn't mean larger. It just means it's a combination of foam with carbon and also even some wood support inside. So yeah, kind of a nice thing there. So Michael Miller asked a question, any plans for a large scale F4? So the honest truth is we would love to make more bigger airplanes like this. The downside is the market doesn't appear to necessarily want to pay more for those models. So this airplane, luckily, because it was already done, we're able to keep it under $700. If we made a Corsair this size, it would probably be $800 or even $900. We'd have to pay for new tooling. Tooling costs have gone up almost double. We'd have to pay for the new development, design and development of that. The Corsair has more complication in some ways for the flaps, the landing gear. So if this sells well, hopefully now on its third iteration, sells even better than the first two, we'll consider more large-scale warbirds. But the truth is, I think there's this mix match in the industry where people think foam airplanes should be cheap. Foam does not mean cheap. Foam costs what it costs, and in this scale, it costs more. It's a bigger airplane. Labor has gone up, materials have gone up, tooling has gone up. So if this sells well, we'll consider another one, but we really need the market to adopt this, and also even the Carbon Z Cessna, the Carbon Z Cub. If they don't, we're not going to really have the ammunition to argue for spending the time and money to develop a larger Corsair, a larger Mustang, or something like that. So right now we have the 1.5 meter Corsair. I'm sorry, P-51, and we have the Focke-Wulf. Those have done pretty good. They're $500. So we thought about a Corsair that size, but there's already a competitor out there at $1,600. So we probably won't do that. There's already some larger Corsairs out there from even FMS in particular. We may not do that, but yeah, hopefully this sells well and we can consider that. So I see my laptop's warning me my battery's running low, so I'll show you one more thing, which you guys already know about this because we announced it a few weeks ago. We already started shipping it, but this is the P-51 1.2 meter. We updated and upgraded it. Of course, the only things we changed on it from the version before was the trim scheme. It's now Cripes and Mighty, which is very popular, the blue nose. We changed to a smart 70 amp light ESC. The motor's the same. Everything else, servos, retracts are all the same because it was all working so well before. But the nice thing is with the new version, you do have the smart telemetry, which I really like. I've got a video which I'll link to in the chat after this is over. It's a flight talk video and an overview video where I talk about the batteries in particular. It will fly on a 3-cell or a 4-cell 2200 to a 3200. 3200s are a tight fit. You have to remove the Velcro straps that are on the battery tray. So this is the battery tray that's in there. I run it with a piece of Velcro in the middle and no straps. And then I can put a 3200 on there, which is exactly the width of this pretty much, and it's a tight fit in there, but I like the 4-cell 3200 myself. A 4-cell 2200 will work, but it pulls 70 amps. So if you have a 2200 30C, that's about a 66 amp capable battery. It does, especially in cold weather, hit the low voltage cutoff prematurely. So I recommend 2200 3-cell 30C is fine. If you do 2200 4-cell, you really need a 50C battery, or the best battery for me is the 3200 4-cell is my favorite. And because it's only pulling about 70 amps, this is a 30C is fine. 30C 3200 can do 96 amps all day long, so this has no problem in the 1.2 meter warbirds. This is my favorite battery because I get the longest flight time, I get the most power. It pulls about 72 amps I think with this battery, and it has great performance, good flight time. The only trick again is you have to get rid of the straps and you have to put some Velcro on the tray and then mount this to the tray without the straps. But when you slide it in the fuselage, the battery can't go anywhere. So as long as you have Velcro on the bottom of it, it's fine with the tray without straps. So just a minor note on that, but I'll link to the video for the T-28 so you guys can see that before we announce it tomorrow. Please don't share that until tomorrow, of course. And then we'll link to the video, which is the overview and flight talk for this new Mustang, which is selling really well, by the way. Warbirds are kind of coming back. Warbirds kind of slowed down for a while, but I'll tell you, I think that the market is getting excited about warbirds again. EDFs were really hot for a long time. They're still hot, but they're slowing down because a lot of guys are struggling to find places to fly them and have the skills to fly them. Warbirds, especially like this T-28, that Mustang, are much easier to afford, much easier to fly for more people, and they're still cool in scale, and you know they're more refined than they've ever been with these updates that we've made. So yeah, very exciting stuff. Hopefully you guys do well with both of these. I think that by the way, we're starting off the year with 2 refreshes, we call them, or updates of existing models. We have some all new airplanes coming, don't worry. We usually try to announce all new and then a refresh and an all new. We try to balance them out, but it's not always up to us. Sometimes timing doesn't work out the way we'd like, but obviously we have more new releases coming. Next week we'll actually have a new Hangar 9 airplane, which is pretty cool, a wood ARF. So that's kind of a nice thing that is a little different than we've done. And then again, just in the next couple of months here, we've got a lot of really cool foam airplanes and even a new wood airplane coming from one of our popular brands that we haven't had a wood airplane in for a long time. So we're very excited. There's going to be a lot of good stuff this year. Maybe, again, this may not be super exciting to everybody because it's a refresh, but I think it's exactly what most people were hoping for. Updated retracts, the fully painted finish, the lights, the smart. It's got all the good stuff. I still think the price, it might be high, but it's still a good value for what it is, and I think it'll hopefully do well. So, all right, any other questions before we sign off? Doesn't look like it. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. And I didn't introduce myself earlier, but I'm Jason Merkel, brand manager here at Horizon Hobby. Work on E-flite, Hangar 9, some of the other air brands, RealFlight in particular. By the way, keep an eye out. You'll be able to add this T-28 and that Mustang to RealFlight Evolution using our new upcoming quarterly content packs. So you'll be able to sell a card in your store so a person can go online and download these models. That's a really cool feature of the latest version of RealFlight, so make sure you have that in your store. You're selling that. And the goal is, as we come out with new models, within a couple months, a person can buy those models to put into their version of, or to their latest iteration of RealFlight Evolution. So that way, instead of having to wait a year for updated models, they can just go out and buy those models every 3 months. So we're really excited about that. Alrighty, thank you guys for joining us.